But closing stock take is a vital part of financial control, the physical inventory count at the end of the trading period. The full stock counting process, including front of house and storeroom contents, should occur at least 4 times in a month. Once on the last trading day of the month and 1 day of every trading week, and these days signify the cutoff day for your finance processing. No single trading week should be more than 12 consecutive trading days. Here are the steps. Step 1. Print out the stock count sheets. You should assign at least 2 employees per department to count inventory, and the sheets must be signed by both employees. The stock take procedure emphasizes planning the stock take upfront, deciding on a time close to the end of the business day as possible. Let's take a look at a typical count sheet. It should contain at least 2 columns, one for the product name and the other for the physical count value. It's important that these values be based on the same unit of measure used in the issuing process to ensure accuracy and uniformity. Step 2. Add closing stock to the stock sheet. This is typically completed by the admin or catering manager, and any variances found should be immediately addressed. Let's take a look at a completed stock sheet line and go through the process of analyzing possible variances. In our example, we have an opening quantity of 8 items. During the trading week, we have purchased an additional 9 items of the product. After our closing stock has been captured, we can see that we have 2 items on hand. Using our consumption formula, we can calculate that we have used or consumed a total of 15 items for this trading period. Let's compare this value to our issue sheets total, and according to our issue sheets, we have used a total of 18 items. With having found an additional 3 items issued, we now need to confirm all the values captured are correct. Step 1 would be to recount that product's stock on hand. The next step would be to confirm the opening stock value is correct. You do this by checking your previous week's closing stocks value. The third step is to check the signed issue sheet documents and compare these values to the captured issues values. Any incorrect values captured need to be adjusted immediately. This process would need to be done for products with a consumption difference of 10% or more for smaller canteens, starting with the higher value items such as red meat. As this is an important step in the process for ensuring accuracy, let's take an in-depth look at a policy for stock taking now. Stock take procedure. Plan the stock take up front. Decide on a time that the stock must be counted. The stock must be counted as close to the close of business on the period end date as possible. Ensure stock levels are at the minimum level to still ensure trading without interruptions. It would be ideal if there was no stock movement during the stock take. It would therefore be a good idea to count stock after hours of normal trading or to book out all stock needed for the day of business prior to starting the count. Obtain stock issue and receipts at stock take and use for reconciliation. Try and not schedule any deliveries from your suppliers on the day of the count, if possible. All stock take sheets must be pre-numbered and printed out. Stock take sheets must clearly state the date of stock take. No stock to be taken on blank pieces of paper. It would be a good idea to print out your stock and consumption sheet to count stock on. All counts should be recorded in ink and not in pencil. All deletions and/or alterations must be acknowledged and signed for by both parties attending the stock take. All blank spaces on the completed stock sheets must be crossed out and signed against as an indication that there is no stock on hand. Stock must be counted methodically, starting from one side of the stockroom or freezer and working consistently from top to bottom and from left to right. Stock counts must be clearly marked to avoid counting the same stock twice or to avoid not counting certain items. Where it is not practical to physically mark stock, for example, frozen meat, make sure the area is marked post-counting to avoid duplication. At least 2 people must partake in the count-on, of which 1 must be the catering or project manager of the unit. At least 2 must do the first round of counting, and the second must recheck the actual number of items to the numbers recorded by the first person. Any discrepancies should be resolved immediately. Ensure that count teams or checkers include persons independent of the stock recording function at the unit. All completed stock count sheets must be signed off by the counter as well as by the checker. All signed renumbered stock sheets must be accounted for. Any unused stock sheets must be returned to the catering manager and canceled to avoid the addition or manipulation of data or numbers at a later stage. All stock held on behalf of third parties, i.e., maybe stock owned by the client but stored in our facilities, must be identified, marked as third-party stock, and excluded from the count. Any stock movements during the stock count should be recorded. This alteration must be signed off by both parties partaking in the stock count. Stock-taking teams are to identify slow-moving, obsolete, damaged, or deteriorated stock on the stock sheets and mark as such. Prepared products can't be counted into the closing stock. Only raw purchased items can be counted into the closing stock. All closing stock should be counted. This includes stock in storerooms, as well as closing stock balances for front-of-house resale stock and call order bar stock. Any stock not on premises, for example, stock sent to outside parties for intermediate processing or finishing, must be identified and included in the count. Mark as held by third parties. A copy of this document can be made to keep in the unit. The original document needs to be attached to the captured stock sheet and forwarded to the head office with your month-end returns. This actual stock should be transferred into the Excel stock sheet to calculate a closing stock value. This stock sheet should be printed out and audited by the people responsible for the stock take. They need to sign it off in agreement that the closing stock was captured correctly. Stock on system, after adjustments made by the catering or project manager based on the signed-off stock sheets, needs to be checked by the financial personnel against the stock count sheets to verify correctness of adjustments. The catering manager or project manager on site needs to sign off each page of the captured stock taken in agreement. This stock sheet needs to be forwarded to the head office electronically as well as in hard copy. Stock count sheets should be signed off by catering or the project manager. There should be a cover sheet attached to the captured stock sheet, signed off by the most senior person on site, as well as the area or regional manager. No closing stock will be accepted if it is not signed off. Now let's take you through the closing stock process on StockFlow. From the left-hand navigation menu, click on the Closing Stock tab. On the right-hand side, click the button New Closing Stock. Next, select the current trading week dates for which you are processing. It's important to select the date after your previous closing stock take date, as StockFlow uses this to calculate your stock on hand quantities and weighted average prices based on your opening stock. Select your closing stock date for which you are processing, as well as the department you are processing for. Use the filter options to find the product or navigate through the various pages on the list of products. You will see the stock on hand quantity, as well as the unit of measure and the price per product if you have selected the correct trading period. Input the closing stock quantity for your product and click on the plus icon to add the product to your closing stock sheet. Continue this process to add all your products to your closing stock sheet. You will see your progress on the right-hand side. Once you are complete, click the Save button. You also have the option to save and continue should you wish to continue without completing the entire closing stock. To view the list of all closing stocks, close this window and navigate to the Closing Stock tab. Select the trading period dates to see all the processed closing stocks. To view your stock sheets once you have completed your closing stock take processing, select the Stock Sheets tab from the left-hand navigation menu. Select the trading period dates for which you want to view. Your stock sheet will be generated below. You have the option to view the stock sheet by values or by quantities by checking this toggle switch. You also have the option to view the details of your opening stock, purchases, issue sheets, and closing stocks from the tabs above for your selected trading period. That takes care of the closing stock module. Now let's move on to the risk report lesson.